Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the invitation. I would like to warmly congratulate the Ministry of Education of Lithuania and all partners for completing this project on EdTech and digital transformation of education and training. It's a great pleasure to present to you now what we do at European level when it comes to the digital transformation of education and training systems across the EU. And in the next, I would say, 15 minutes, I will focus on the main trends we see, the main policies we have at European level, and where we see the role of the edtech sector in all of this. So, the private sector that is really developed with education and training in its core. So, I'm starting with trends. And I am afraid, but I cannot change my slides from here. So I hope the colleagues can help me move to the next slide. Um, so let's start with trends. Last Thank you. Last week, the International Computer and Information Literacy Study was published, which covers 35 countries around the world, 22 of which are European member states. And while Lithuania did not take part of this study, I really wanted to start by talking about it because ultimately this shows us a very clear the landscape we have at European level when it comes to the development of digital skills of young people and their competences to safely navigate in the online world, in the digital world, to be empowered and to be safe. So the news are not so great, I'm afraid. 43% of the 14-year-olds across the EU lack at least basic digital skills. And these are the young people who we call digital natives. We call them that they are born and raised almost with a laptop or with a smartphone in their hand. Well, obviously the data shows us, and this is direct testing, that the trends are not exactly that positive. And what we see is that socioeconomic background plays a huge role. So the level of education of parents, their occupation, the household, the conditions, including the number of books, plays a very important role in how well young people perform with their digital skills. Gender remains an issue. We see that girls outperform boys in that age, but later, when we look in the labor market, the trends are really not in favor of women being well represented in the labor force and in the studies. And what is most concerning is that, in comparison to the previous study in 2018, we see a decline and almost no improvement in the scores when it comes to the digital skills across the EU. And this is problematic. It's problematic because we have our targets. We would like to reach from these 43% underachievers to 15 by 2030, which is not that far from now. But it's more broadly a problem because we need young people to be able to benefit fully from the digital age. We live in a society where digitization, artificial intelligence is becoming increasingly part of our life. It's becoming increasingly part of the education system. Of course, one of these this project shows this very clearly, but they also face, and we as societies face, increased disinformation, increased online challenges. And at the end of the day, we need, all of us Europeans, digital skills to navigate in the digital age, to be citizens, but also to be part of the labor market where the digital skills are increasingly needed. We need this for Europe's competitiveness. So if you look, so all of this calls for urgent action at all levels, at European, at national level. And again, this project is a really an excellent example in this regard. If we move to the next slide, I will present you what we do at European level. And this is our Digital Education Action Plan. The Digital Education Action Plan is the main policy we have for effective digital transformation of education and training and for development of digital skills and competences. Of course, education and training is competence of the member states. We work under the principle of subsidiarity here, but the EU is putting a lot of effort to support, to enhance the digital policies, to ensure coordination, and of course, funding. So if we move to the next slide, I would like to highlight to you that ultimately, with the Digital Education Action Plan we adopted in 2020, we put a strong priority on digital education at European level. Of course, we took into consideration the pandemic and the challenges that were faced, the different the online and distance learning, but also we're looking ahead in the effective and high quality digital transformation of education and training, and ensuring that the systems and member states are supported to address emerging trends or disruptive technologies, to name AI or generative AI, for example. The action plan offers a common understanding. So, what is important? What are the priorities? What we see as key areas for action at European level, and it's also underpinned by different funding programs. I'll talk about Erasmus Plus a bit later, but it's not only Erasmus Plus. We have Digital Europe, we have Horizon Europe, we have the Recovery and Resilience Fund. And so obviously this project also contributes greatly to our objectives. Going further with the next slide, I would like to point to the fact that the action plan, as I said, is looking into as a main priority, high quality and inclusive digital education. Whether digital or not, these are main and key values for education at European level, and we see them translating very clearly in the digital field. And when I talked about common priorities, common strategic areas, the action plan follows two of those, and the first one is the development of a digital education ecosystem, so ensuring that all the preconditions are in place: infrastructure, digital content, teacher training, digital equipment. So actually, education can benefit from digital transformation. And on the other side, the development of digital skills and competencies among young people, but also across the population. And in view of that, at European level, for us, cooperation, exchange of practices are essential. So this is our horizontal priority, which is also a key enabler for success on our side. And this happens through the Digital Education Hub, an online community of more than 5,000 stakeholders we have put in place for exchange of practices. So if you're not part of it, I invite you to have a look. If we go further, of course, at European level, we have the Digital Education Action Plan. But on the next slide, thank you, you will see that we are very happy to have a strong political commitment from the member states. I started with the point how important it is for all of us to work together at different levels. And we're happy that the member states are on board with this challenge and this opportunity. Last year, unprecedented commitment was made with the adoption of two council recommendations, one on key enabling factors for digital education, where member states strongly showed their commitment um, for universal access to digital education, and a second council recommendation mirroring the second priority I mentioned earlier on the development of digital skills and competencies in a comprehensive and strategic manner. And if we look into the next slide, you will see that on our side, we are putting as part of these priorities in delivery to these council recommendations, a set of actions. And I won't have the time to go through all the actions of the Digital Education Action Plan, but I wanted to highlight a few in view of the project and in view of also the priorities we see at European level. When it comes to the key enablers or the digital education ecosystem, the foundation that is needed, we are currently working on guidelines for digital education content, meaning what it means to have high quality content, where how to make it accessible, inclusive, how to also address generative AI, the impact it has. I know that digital content is part of the project here in Lithuania, so I think it would be interesting topic for you to follow. And the other key area at the moment is, of course, AI. AI is no longer a let's say a science fiction or something of the future. For the last 2 years, we've seen a huge increase in the use of AI tools in education and training. And on our side, we have put ethical guidelines for teachers and educators on that topic. That, if we can move to the previous slide, it would be great. Thank you. Um, Ethical guidelines on the use of AI and data that are available in all languages, Lithuanian included. So I invite you to have a look at them. And also another work in this regard in relation to AI is the fact that we are encouraging our digital education hub and the different stakeholders to work jointly on different topics, one of which is explainable AI. So the idea is how to ensure that AI is not a black box, that we have an ethical understanding of how it works, and we are aware as educators and policymakers of how the different proposals in terms of generated content or solutions are made, actually how the decisions are taken. And earlier this year, the AI Act is entered into force, and we expect a lot of implications for education and training. And in regard of this, we are running a study to support further our stakeholders. Moving to the next slide and the importance of development of digital skills and competencies, I would like to highlight the digital competencies framework that is widely used across the EU in the curriculum development. Describes the different competencies that make us digitally literate, digitally competent in 21st century. And this is complemented by some of our work, which is guidelines for teachers on tackling disinformation, so addressing another pressing issue and supporting the development of related skills and competencies, again available in Lithuanian language as well. And then we're looking into further guidelines on the provision of high quality informatics. From our work in the last years, we've identified informatics as a key discipline that builds a very strong foundation of digital skills and lays a really excellent grounds for the further understanding of AI, for example, or other advanced skills development. So we see the need to provide a bit more guidance of how this uh, subject can be taught in an effective manner. And for these purposes, we work with an expert group. And I mentioned gender in the beginning. I would like to really highlight that we put a lot of effort in promoting and encouraging the participation of young women in STEM and ICT studies and careers. So this happens through a program we have called Girls Go Circular, which is an online program in digital and entrepreneurship education that is basically encouraging girls to already at the age of 14 to 18 develop those skills and not be afraid of actually pursuing careers later on. Similarly to that, there is a number of festivals called eSTEAM Fests that encourage similar activities in the STEM field. If we look into the next slide, you will see that I mentioned cooperation as a key enabler in the beginning, but another key enabler is funding. Erasmus Plus is the main program we have for education and training in digital is a horizontal priority from 2021 until 2027. And we see a lot of support. We put a lot of support, but we also see a lot of interest from stakeholders in grassroots projects such as the partnerships for cooperation. We have 60% of the budget and 40% of the projects looking into digital education, digital transformation of education. So the need is there, and we're ready to support our stakeholders in taking further the digital capacities they have. And when it comes to the calls where we put the focus every year, the priority, I would like to invite you to check the Erasmus Plus Forward Looking Projects call for 2025, which has now is not yet published, but the annual work program is published. And we see opportunities for projects in three areas: generative AI, data skills assessment, and data collection. Going to my next couple of slides, we talked a lot about EdTech, and I know this project is looking into EdTech, so education solutions that are developed to address education needs, pedagogies, and to support learning outcomes. And I was happy to understand that there's test beds as part of this project, so that the fact that experimentation and really looking at quality assurance is part of your project. And I wanted to highlight that for us, the European EdTech sector, so the companies that are created in Europe, that are developed in Europe, that address European values and European needs in education and training, we see them as a big part of the digital education ecosystem. We are really ready to support them. We see them as a key bridge between education and innovation, and we see that they're also growing. Over the pandemic, we've seen a huge increase of edtech companies and a huge diversity. They're agile. They address pressing needs during crisis, the pandemic, but also, let's say, the war in Ukraine was another trigger for the industry to get together and offer their solutions for free to those who are affected. But then again, this is a young and fragmented market. It's a market that is still growing, and it comes with a lot of challenges, and we are aware of this. And our objective as the Commission is to deepen the dialogue between EdTech at European level, so to support them further, to promote also public-private partnerships. We know that this works. These methodologies work. There's some very good examples across the world, and we would like to support the development of those. As a way to innovate education and training, but also support the sector. And then we are very much aware of the fact that learning outcomes should be a priority. So EdTech solutions should work. We stand firmly behind that, and for us, ensuring that there is a quality assurance and impact of their objectives is essential. And as I said, these are European tools. They bring European values, and we really see them as hugely important in addressing some other challenges, such as data privacy, for example, because if they are created in Europe, if they're developed in Europe, we trust that they are really bound to the European values of inclusion, accessibility, people-centered approach, etc. And my next slide focuses very quickly on what we are actually doing to support the sector. Well, let me highlight a few things. With our work so far and what we would like to do further, we would like to mainstream EdTech further into EU digital education policies, to exchange practices, to promote to promote good ideas and to upscale them. We've put a focus on in Erasmus Plus a few years ago to also, let's say, enhance cooperation and to support it through funding opportunities. The EIT, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, has launched a conference on an annual basis that is focused specifically on EdTech. This is the first so EU supported commission supported conference in the topic, which happens usually in the beginning of every year in Brussels. And last but not least, there is also a lot of very good projects, I have to say, that are supported from different programs in the Commission. For example, the Digital Europe program, there is an ongoing, very interesting project called Empower Ed that is looking into the EdTech ecosystem. So if you're interested, I invite you to also have a look at this project as such. And my last slide, I would like to highlight the fact that the Digital Education Action Plan was launched in 2020. It runs until 2027. We're halfway through. I started with the need to ramp up our efforts, with the need to push further and to really take strong steps and ambitious steps in addressing the still persisting gaps. And I would like to reiterate that we're now in the process of midterm review. So we're halfway through the implementation. We're taking stock of what has been achieved, and we're looking at further areas that we can focus our attention. So I presented to you what we've done so far and what we're planning in the immediate future, but I invite you to stay tuned because next year we will publish the results of the review. Thank you very much.